Darren, I thought maybe we could look at a few images of stone circles around the world. You know, images worth 1,000 words, pictures worth 1,000 words. And it really is, it's impacting for me every time to see the reality of this and to consider the importance they may have had for people at that time. So bring a few images up and we'll chat about them.
All right, excellent.
So there's Stonehenge, and it's interesting that the fascination it still has, right? I mean, it's never short on tourists. People flood there still, and it's almost makes you wonder if intuitively, at some level, people are drawn there, feeling that there's some relevance, there's some importance. It is a place to recharge, even though the process can't happen as it should happen. And it's the same with a lot of these sacred sites around the world. I feel that people are attracted to them because they sense there's a potential there. Whether or not they can plug in and it can happen the same way is obviously very unlikely. I like this particular image. Again, the whole thing has been mostly dismantled or fallen into disarray, but you get an idea of the size of those stones with this picture.
Yeah.
And how difficult it would be to put that stone on the top. Really, it's possible, yeah, but you have to think, why make it so hard? Why make it so difficult? Why does it have to be so large? And again, the idea of how important this charge was, this energy charge. It's really extraordinary. And the idea that they were preserving something that was weakening. Now, a lot of people feel that it had something to do with energy, but they feel that the way to evaluate it normally is there's energy as we know it now, and they go into the circle and they get a charge up. But we're saying something else. We're saying there was a huge energy that's been lost, and this was a place that was preserving those energies.
And people do say that, don't they, Colin? Not everybody, but there's a number of people when they go to that site, even with the crowd standing in it, that they feel a charge. They feel a particular kind of energy that fills them up when they're there that they don't feel somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the idea of an enclosed space. Look at those fields beyond in this image, like kilometers of nothing. If it was able to be built anywhere, they could just build it closer to where the stones were quarried. But no, it had to be that far away. And there's a whole outer ring even further out from these stones that we're looking at here. And so there's a whole step-by-step process. You can see part of that in a fivefold arrangement there. But it would have been an incredible thing when it was actually in place and activated. It's impossible to imagine really today. And these dragon lines and ley lines would have been felt back at that time because, again, if there was not so much electrical pollution and distraction as there is today, people had a sensitivity. They were still able to sense radiations. It would have been so natural that it wouldn't need to be discussed. It would be obvious. It would be part of life. Today, things are flattened out to the point that if we feel energy, we'll mention it. We'll say, oh, I felt a charge. You know, there was something in the atmosphere. Or, funny, people will refer to atmospheres and energies in different places, but it's obviously very weakened compared to what this implies. And if you think about the tribes that would gather in circles, I mean, you could say the circles are practical form anyway, because you can look at each other and so on. But something else happens when you're in a circle. I mean, you know it from being on a campfire at a campfire with your friends. Something gathers in the middle, something magical. If you've ever been out, got to go off into the forest a little bit for number one. When you come back, you can feel this special atmosphere is building in the space where your friends are.
That's another thing about a circle too, with vibration and energy. If you at the local museum, there's a small round room with a vaulted ceiling. And if you go in there and hum, if you hit the right note, it just continues to reverberate around and around in this small chamber. So that is one of the natures of what a circle will do. It causes energy to continue to reverberate.
This photo here was in Peru. And of course, no tourists, no ticket. Very nice. You can actually try to detect what was going on there. But again, a lot of effort, even this being a small circle, smaller stones, a lot of effort to make the arrangement. And there's a kind of dip in the middle. And again, if you go in slowly and take your time at the edge and walking in, you can feel a different degree of charge in the center of this circle. This is a place called Cowley in Scotland, and
Yeah.
they obviously weren't too worried about the finesse of the finish of these stones. It's like they don't mind that they're not all squared off like Stonehenge. But the idea that there's a plug-in, a bit like an acupuncture needle, as you're saying, Darren. And so force is running up, and you'll get these, what they call standing stones, spotted along the ley lines. Just one stone sticking out the earth. There's a photo coming up of one of these. Because the main thing was that the energy was being conducted up and allowing the conductivity to accumulate.
And it's amazing too, this fact of them being all over the world, because it's a bit like you can imagine in the future, people coming back and digging up modern archaeological sites, and they say, oh, everybody had an airport, you know, or everybody had a power station. But when you see this, it's like, hey, everybody had one of these.
Yeah. This is one of the most intriguing to me. I'd love to visit this one in Scotland, called the Ring of Brodgar. I mean, it sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
It's 104 meters across. It's absolutely huge. There's a photo here of it.
Wow.
And it's the largest stone circle in the British Isles in the UK. And again, it's just there in the kind of nothing around it. Doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. Think how far it is away from everything else. But the people in that region they were compelled to set up a stone circle. And so there's definitely, again, the idea of holding energy, conducting and holding energy into a particular space, because they could just mark out a circle with a little stone. Yeah. But the larger the stone, the more anchor, right? The more power is going to be anchored. There's an aerial view. So you can see it's very remote.
Yeah, amazing.
But as you said a bit earlier, Darren, it's where it's the right spot where a certain number of ley lines pass. And it was detected. Even my name's Spenley. Ley comes from an area called Spen, and there was the ley of Spen.
Wow.
And so it was integrated even into. There's a lot of surnames that have L-E-Y at the end, and it was to do with recognition of different leys in different areas. This is from an area of Brazil, Amapa, it's called. A little bit disorganized, but no comment. This one is intriguing. It's an aerial view of a stone circle in Australia. Actually, two stone circles with a kind of pathway between them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting that serpent dragon sort of shape connecting stone megaliths is quite common. In North America, they have one like that as well. It's
amazing to think there's obviously a kind of pathway between the stones, like an energy corridor. Makes you wonder if they're two different polarities on either end, but in any case, incredibly intriguing. South Africa, that's it. I mean, again, it didn't have to come out as news. People were detecting the drop of energy, and somehow they knew that if we want to conserve energy, this is the structure that does it. It seems like it's kind of like building a fire for warmth. Somehow that kind of minimum knowledge was available at that time. You get the single standing stones. This is called the bear down man. This is interesting because the idea is that a traveler walking through the fields could get a small charge up, keep his energies up as he walks along the ley line from place to place. And you can imagine a person getting there, putting their back up against the stone, charging, just like we plug a phone into a charger, ready for more activities. The stone circles on the border between France and Spain. It is intriguing why so many in that particular region of the planet, but you get the impression that each community, each people in different spots was becoming aware of this dropping conductivity and went to work as best they could, because this is no Stonehenge, but if it works to some degree, good enough for the local community.
Yeah.
This is, of course, one of the most amazing ones, Karnak in France, because there's over 3,000 stones arranged in straight lines and circles. So,
yeah, amazing.
Again, how important was it for these people? How important for the people of that time was this? And it kind of looks like you're looking at a motherboard of a computer, that plaque inside a computer. There must be reasons why there were certain types of stone, the number of stones, the positioning.
And that's the thing too, that a lot of those stones used have a high crystalline substance inside of them. And because I see what you say by motherboard, but I also think musical instrument, because it's almost like each stone's a different note, and when they're energized, they're going to give off a frequency and a vibe, but you've got a collective vibration and frequency there. It's more complex than a simple stone circle where the energy goes round and round and is held. This is more like a transmissive kind of setup.
Sensitive people definitely feel energy there. They feel a charge. They feel that the stones have something. But again, it's like a residue as opposed to something activated and powerful at the time. Whereas when at that time, maybe you walk down the corridors of the stones and you come out, you go in with a 10% charge and you come out with 100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the idea is kind of left over into, the idea of church. You go on a Sunday and the idea is you kind of get a recharge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your faith and your belief, everything's all charged up and to see you through the week until next Sunday.
You see, something I meant to say before about the stone circles is that if you own a radio station, or in the old days, with an analog radio station, you get a license to transmit a certain distance. So you could transmit over a 50-mile radius and people could tune into your radio station. But if you got the next license up, then you could transmit 100 kilometers from your radio station. You boost the signal, so you add more power and energy to boost the signal. And that's the thing about stone circles. One wonders if it was a twofold mechanism where one's holding and building energy, but that allows for a reception and transmission over greater distances. Because all of these ancient cultures, again, they talked about some kind of communication or connection outside of the planet.
Yeah.
As well as inside.
Yeah, that would be, you're absolutely right. I mean, same with the pyramids. It wouldn't be like absolutely everybody has to go into them. They would have certain people, representatives that would go in, that would be able to handle the charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like the idea of a priest standing at the altar and conducting. Interesting word, isn't it? Because conducting gives the idea of energy conduction. They're doing it really as a service to the greater community, to the greater number of people. Ireland, across the shores on Ireland, a place called Dromberg. Interesting how often they're just some remote spot, which seemed to have no particular reasoning for that spot, except again, if there's an intersection of ley lines, there's a concentrated power. And this is really intriguing, this Nabta-Playa.
Yes.
I mean, Egypt's already got enough mysteries to go on with, but even with the pyramids and the Sphinx and everything up the road, there in the middle of the desert, there's a stone circle. And you were saying something to me earlier about the alignment of the circle.
Oh, look, it's really, really interesting because, it looks a bit rough, but that depression that you see it in the desert, thousands of years ago, it wasn't a desert and it was a seasonal lake. So all of those stones would be sitting out of a shallow lake of water. So at nighttime and in the desert, it's clear, there's no clouds, you'd have the perfect reflection of the stars above and below. So in terms of observing star movements and calculations, it aided that process. Wow. But one of the incredible things about it, and nobody knows who built it or why it's there, there's no dwellings or domestic temples or organizations around it. It's just the stone circle and some other structures. But the stones in the middle align with the constellation of Orion's belt perfectly at a certain time, but they also align with Orion's belt through the full precessional cycle of 26,000 years. It looks like this in the sky, and then when it gradually moves back over 26,000 years, it looks like it's angled that way in the sky, and it lines up with another 3 stones. So it has these 6 stones in the middle. And once again, how do you work that out? Why do you need to know that information so specifically? I mean, is this talking about timescales outside of this planet and important events, important cosmic events that have been in the past and are yet to come in the future, which I think it does personally.
Yeah, it really does. And it's incredible to think of these people tuned into these bigger cycles and understanding that we're part of waves and cycles at a cosmic level, and the idea of being tuned into that, whether or not your lifetime sees it through or not, that you're part of that occurrence. So
on that, that's a thing, all the fuss that was made about the Mayan calendar, and was it 2012 December 21st, the solstice?
Yeah.
And people predicted the end of the world and all the rest of it, but we're talking about changes in the unseen worlds and cosmic energies. And I would just say to anybody, think back to 2012. Are things different or not? Because they have. There's been a massive shift.
Yeah. Most people are feeling something accelerating and also feeling something's not quite right.
Yep.
And that's again, think of the idea of approaching one of these conductive stone circles gradually, or a sacred site. Think of the line of sphinxes before going into a temple in Egypt. There was often, well, not often, there was always a conditioning process before the main event, let's say. This Göbekli in Turkey is incredible, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, because that's totally enigmatic, the structure. And again, it'll never be solved unless the electrical aspect is taken into consideration. Again, like somebody finding a transistor radio, a transistor radio appearing 500 years ago in somebody's house. They're just not going to work out what it's for. If it's got no batteries, it's got nothing, it's not being tuned into anything.
Well, the other thing, Colin, talk about deactivated. It was completely buried. A farmer was plowing his field and hit a rock. He thought, what's this? He dug around a little bit, started finding all these structures. So whoever created that and used it, it had a function, and then completely buried, gone from history, completely whatever it was doing was no longer doing it.
Now they found another one called Karahan.
Yeah.
And again, this is much further back than the Stonehenge and the stone circles are attributed to. This is like 9,000 years ago. But the idea, again, of concentrating energy, of causing a compacted power pack force center, so that it would be extremely potent in the center, which again is the notion behind the pyramids, right? Pyramid, fire in the middle, pyre in the middle. So the idea of power in the center. And this is just one from Japan, just to show how widely spread this notion was, this impulse was to cause a stone circle, potency in the middle, preserve some force. There's no way this information could have got around the world without it just being picked up by the people in different lands by their own natural systems and knowing what they needed to do. So I'll stop share there. It's been quite a long one, but yeah, time wind up. You were going to say something about tying this into...
Yes, Trail 2, for those who are interested on Ruby Mountain. That's called the Universal Laws in Big and Small. So we go into a lot more detail about these kind of phenomena, and really the unseen worlds and the electromagnetic phenomena behind them, which everything seems to come back to at the core.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we better wind up. Again, a lot to consider, and it's really what these things imply, what they say about other things that is so interesting. And these stone circles are amazing because they're real, they're there, something happened. And I think dwelling on this area, it sort of brings it forward. It doesn't feel like some distant people, something not related to us, because this human fivefold energy system and the idea of conductivity, it's for all of us to get a grasp of and see the relevance now, because I feel the force is coming and coming thick and fast.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's remind people to subscribe and check out the Ruby Mountain channel, the Ruby Mountain website, if you haven't already.
Yeah, there's a lot more there to discover.
There really is. Darren, always good to talk to you.
Yeah, great, man. Yeah, really enjoyed that. So just opens up more, talk about Hinge, just opens up more doors to the miraculous and the amazing. Yeah, it's incredible.
All right, so we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. All right. See you, Colin.
Bye. Bye, Darren.
Bye.